G'day, friends. Today we're going to talk about two of the most maligned individuals in possibly the history of mankind. And I've spoken a little bit about this before, but these two people have gone down in the history books as probably being the most evil two individuals that have walked the earth as far as the modern history goes, and specifically to do with a certain group of people. Now, there are certain people that think Jesus was the very worst of the two because, he went into another level of offence. The Son of God, which he claimed to be, was just too much for some people. And he was accused of blasphemy, basically, and written off as a rebel. And the other one was, of course, Hitler, who felt the pain of a parasitical society that had latched on to the German folk. And he realised that he had to do something because he saw his country going down the gurgler with the post-Versailles Weimar Republic. People were starving, much debauchery, no money, and he felt he had to do something. So the thing is that these two individuals did do something, and one was right and one was wrong. One understood the nature of the parasite, and one was a little bit more naive. Okay, so the main difference between the two is that the latter thought that he could fight in the physical, and what he didn't realise is that the parasitical power that was strangling Germany, it wasn't their first time around the block. They know how to protect the host, because without the host, they have to move on and find a new host. So they basically have their bases covered when it comes to warfare of the natural kind, guns, bullets, bombs, and technology and all that. So Hitler was a little bit naive, and it wouldn't have mattered how long it went on for. Sooner or later, he would have been defeated, and he probably put up a good fight, if you could say that, but wasn't wise as the serpent. Now, what Hitler didn't understand is that the parasite depends on a centralised form of government that it can manipulate to control the masses. And Jesus, he took another approach. See, when Jesus came, the people were in a centralised form of government under the Pharisees and under the Romans. And Jesus knew that, if certain people were just expelled, they would find a way to make sure that didn't happen like they did in the past. So Jesus' approach was to starve the parasite of its nourishment. See, the parasite feeds on the centralised society in that it can affect the masses by control of the money supply and control of the media of the day and so forth. And see, what Jesus said he said that if you don't subscribe to that form of government, well, the parasite will have nothing to feed off. So his strategy, which was different to Hitler's, was instead of forming another centralised form of government that the parasite could latch onto, his strategy was to dissolve society into a decentralised network that didn't have a central government. Okay, so in doing so, the parasite was unable to latch on to the large host because everyone was decentralised, and that was what the church system was about, the church structure. Okay, everybody maintained their individual rights, and the church, the only purpose of the church was to provide health, welfare and education. It wasn't supposed to govern the money supply, wasn't supposed to govern the national security as far as if there was a war, the people would come together organically. They weren't paid to have a standing army. There wasn't that centralised structure for the parasite to infest and, infiltrate and so forth. The largest structure was the family, and it's very hard for a parasite to insinuate itself into a family because it's just too small a block, and the family will know. The family has a certain honour, and it can't be bought off as easy, it can't be manipulated as easily, it can't be, corrupted. So it's not worth the parasite to infest such a small host on an individual basis. So Jesus's idea was to have small cells that congregate rather than a large central mass that can be easily attacked, which the parasite knows how to manipulate the mass mind. Okay, so there are people out there that, think Hitler was right and all that. And he was right about some things. He was probably right about a lot of things, but he wasn't right about the way to fight the adversary of God. Okay, he didn't have all the cards in his deck. Okay, he didn't look back through history and see that people had tried this before, but the parasite over thousands of years knows how to defeat that situation. And the parasite, you could call it, some people think it's a biological thing, okay, the guys like Eustace Mullins, but really it's socialism. It's a spiritual satanic idea that thinks that it's okay to take something from your neighbour and supply yourself with benefits from that. Okay, that's the the socialist mentality. So that's really what it is. But Hitler thought you could fight it because Hitler admitted that his number one enemy was the communist. Okay, and it just so happened that a lot of communists were Jews, but his main beef was with communism. Okay, and because he did have Jews working for him and with him in his army and his even in his fairly inner circle there were Jews, but they weren't communists, so he accepted them. But he would not accept the communist, no matter what colour you were or what race you were. The communist was the enemy, the international type communist. And so he didn't look back far enough on how to defeat this socialist mentality. In fact, he built his nation, 1930s Germany, on although a nationalistic level, it was still a socialist level, where he didn't install the layer of charity, which is free will offering to supply the people. He didn't install that layer. He kept a layer of force that took away the individual liberty of each of its inhabitants, its citizens, took away that basic form of liberty that forced them to pay a certain amount, okay, by force. And see, the parasite knows this, and even that particular layer can be affected and infiltrated, because all you need to do is get someone to increase those taxes and the people are in bondage again. But they didn't even have to go that far because they just used brute force. But today, what you see is the value of the money going down, and the value of the level of the taxes increasing. And the reason is because they know that the taxes can be forced by the government. So all they've got to do is control the government, and then the people can be forced. But in the way of Christ, even if somehow people in the government became corrupted, the government couldn't force the people to do anything, to pay tax, because the people maintained that right of choice. And that's the level of liberty that Hitler was not aware of.